The Galactic Council chamber echoed with the voices of alien delegates, their tones dripping with disdain as they debated humanity's future in the galactic community. One after another, representatives from powerful species dismissed the idea of granting humanity membership. To them, humanity was an anomaly, a primitive species marked by an embarrassing history of war and bloodshed, now cowering at the thought of galactic conflict. They lack the resolve for greatness, one delegate scoffed, his scaled hand gesturing dismissively. A species so terrified of war cannot survive in this council, let alone contribute to it. Another chimed in, their voice thick with mockery. Their leaders call for diplomacy, not because they seek unity, but because they fear confrontation. They are weaklings who hide behind words. In the center of the chamber, the human ambassador remained seated, his face expressionless. He was surrounded by beings of towering stature, glowing skin, and intimidating presence. Their superiority complex was palpable, and they thrived on belittling what they perceived as lesser civilizations. The ambassador, however, betrayed no emotion. He listened in silence as his species was dissected, judged, and dismissed as insignificant. The council speaker, a towering figure with crystalline features, leaned forward, his tone measured but cutting. Humanity's history, while rich in conflict, speaks to its instability. It is a species that does not understand the balance of power. They revel in destruction, yet their recent turn to diplomacy reeks of fear. A paradox unfit for the challenges of this galaxy. The murmurs of agreement swelled around the chamber, each delegate adding their voice to the growing condemnation. To them, humanity was fragile, a species that had survived its turbulent history not through strength, but by sheer luck. The ambassador's mind raced as he absorbed the insults. He thought of Earth, of the wars that had scarred its history. He thought of the millions who had suffered, the generations that had endured the unimaginable to ensure that humanity could rise above its past. These beings didn't understand. They couldn't. Humanity's choice to embrace peace wasn't born of fear. It was forged from the wisdom of pain. As another alien delegate took the floor, the ambassador's grip on the armrests of his seat tightened. Humans are a species of contradictions, the delegate declared. They speak of unity but are divided by borders. They speak of progress but are shackled by their history. What can they offer to this council but fragility and excuses? The chamber erupted in murmurs of approval, and the ambassador finally raised his head. His eyes scanned the room, noting the smug expressions, the dismissive gestures, the confidence of those who had never known the depths of human struggle. He remained silent, waiting for the moment to speak, knowing that when he did, every word would count. The chamber fell silent as the human ambassador finally stood. His calm demeanor belied the storm raging within, and when he spoke, his voice was steady but carried the weight of centuries of struggle. You sit here, calling us weak, timid, and unfit for this council. You misunderstand us entirely, he began, his tone deliberate. You claim we fear war. But do you know what war truly is? The ambassador's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of each delegate. War is not the grand, sanitized spectacle you imagine. For us, war is trenches filled with mud and blood. Its cities turned to ash, families torn apart, and generations haunted by scars they cannot see. We know war intimately, its cost, its horror, and that is why we choose peace. A murmur rippled through the chamber, but the ambassador continued, his voice rising. You think we avoid war because we are cowards. No, we avoid it because we have seen what it does to the soul of a civilization. We've watched empires rise and fall, consumed by their arrogance, and we've resolved never to repeat their mistakes. That is not fear. It is wisdom. His words hung in the air, challenging the smug confidence of those who had spoken against humanity. The ambassador's tone sharpened as he leaned forward. You mock our diplomacy as weakness, but diplomacy is our greatest strength. It takes more courage to build bridges than to burn them. And make no mistake, when war becomes unavoidable, we do not cower. We fight with everything we have. He gestured to the delegates. Do you think we would still be here if we feared conflict? Humanity has faced extinction more times than any of you can imagine. We have survived plagues, natural disasters, and wars that spanned continents. And yet, here we stand, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. A delegate from a predator species interjected, sneering, "And what would you do if war came to your doorstep? Beg for mercy? Hide behind your fragile defenses." The ambassador's response was swift and cutting. "If war comes to us, it will find a species that adapts faster than any other. We do not fight with brute strength, we fight with ingenuity. We learn, we innovate, and we strike where it hurts most. You assume our restraint is a weakness, but it is a choice, a calculated decision to preserve what we value most. But push us far enough, and you will see the full extent of what humanity can do." His words carried a quiet intensity, a challenge that none in the chamber could ignore. "We do not fear war," he concluded. "We fear becoming the monsters we once were. But if you force our hand, you will learn just how far we've come, and how much further we are willing to go." The silence that followed was absolute. The chamber was heavy with silence, the weight of the ambassador's words lingering like an unspoken challenge. For a moment, no one spoke. The once confident alien delegates exchanged uncertain glances, their previously smug expressions replaced with furrowed brows and narrowed eyes. The cracks in their unity were beginning to show. Finally, one delegate, a towering creature with luminous, chitinous plates, broke the silence. "Your speech is bold, human, but words alone do not earn respect. You speak of survival and restraint, but where is the proof of your strength? Where are your fleets, your armies, your conquests?" The ambassador turned to face the delegate, his expression calm but unyielding. "You want proof? Look to our history. You speak of fleets and conquests as if they are the only measures of strength. But humanity's power is not in what we conquer. It's in what we endure." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "Our strength is in our ability to rebuild from nothing, to thrive even after the worst calamities, to innovate under pressure. When our cities were reduced to rubble, we built them higher. When disease threatened to wipe us out, we found cures. When enemies sought to destroy us, we turned the tide. Time and again, we have faced extinction and emerged stronger." A delegate from a militaristic species sneered, "Grand stories, human. But survival alone is not strength. What of war? What of your capacity to stand on the battlefield and face annihilation?" The ambassador's voice hardened. "You think we lack the capacity for war because we choose not to flaunt it. Let me remind you that humanity does not just fight battles, we end them. Our wars are not prolonged spectacles for glory or dominance. They are brutal, efficient, and final. We learned long ago that wars are not won by who has the biggest fleet, but by who has the will and the mind to outlast and outthink their enemy." He stepped forward, his voice carrying an edge now. "We've developed technology that your fleets couldn't comprehend. Weapons that strike without warning, defenses that adapt faster than you can attack. And while you sit in this chamber debating our worth, know that humanity does not show its hand until it's too late for our enemies to react." The room buzzed with unease as whispers broke out among the delegates. Some began to doubt their earlier mockery, while others remained defiant, though less certain than before. A grizzled general from an old, war-hardened species leaned back in his seat, studying the ambassador. "You speak with the confidence of one who knows more than he reveals," he said. "Perhaps humanity has been underestimated. Or perhaps you are bluffing. Either way, your defiance has earned you more attention than you realize." The ambassador held the general's gaze. "Bluffing? Believe what you will. But remember this, humanity has no need to prove its strength with threats or displays. If you test us, you will find out exactly what we are capable of. And I promise you will regret the lesson." The chamber fell into uneasy murmurs, and the tension in the air became impossible to ignore. The human ambassador stood silent for a moment, his presence commanding in the now muted chamber. His gaze swept the assembled delegates, each of them caught between curiosity and unease. His voice, steady and deliberate, broke the silence. You wanted to judge humanity, to mock us, to dismiss us as a species unworthy of standing among you. But now you hesitate. Why? Because deep down you fear the very resolve you sought to belittle. You fear what lies beneath the surface of our restraint. The chamber remained silent, the delegates unwilling to interrupt. The ambassador's voice grew firmer, filled with the quiet conviction of someone who spoke not only for himself but for an entire planet. Do you know why we value peace so highly? It's because we have tasted the alternative. We have walked through the ashes of cities, through lands poisoned by our own hands. We have lived with the nightmares of children crying for parents who never returned. And we decided, as a species, that we would not let that be our legacy. He paused, his words hanging heavily in the air before continuing. But peace is not surrender. It is not naivety. It is a choice we have made knowing full well the cost of failure. Do not mistake that choice for weakness. Test us, and you will see what humanity is capable of when it is pushed to the brink. One of the younger delegates, a creature with shimmering scales and a voice that carried the slightest tremor, finally spoke. But why hide such strength if you possess it? Why not assert dominance like so many others in this galaxy? The ambassador turned toward them, his expression softer but no less resolute. Because dominance is fleeting. It breeds rebellion, resentment, and instability. True strength lies in creating something worth preserving, something greater than ourselves. That is what humanity fights for. Not power, not glory, but a future. The murmurs among the delegates grew louder, some of them questioning their earlier assumptions, others clinging to their skepticism. An older delegate from a long-established empire leaned forward, speaking with a tone of cautious respect. And if that future is threatened? If this galaxy forces your hand, what then? The ambassador's reply was immediate and unwavering. Then we will fight not for conquest but for survival. Not to dominate but to protect. And make no mistake, when we fight to win. Humanity does not start wars, but we finish them. Quickly, decisively, permanently. The chamber fell into another uneasy silence as the weight of his words settled. For the first time, the smug superiority of many delegates had been replaced with a quiet understanding. They were no longer speaking to a species begging for acceptance, but to one that had earned its place through sheer resolve. The ambassador took a step back, preparing to leave, but paused for a final statement. You asked if humanity fears war. The truth is, we fear nothing but losing ourselves to it. Push us, and you will find a species that refuses to break. A species that will endure, adapt, and rise no matter the odds. That is who we are. He turned and walked away, leaving the chamber in stunned silence, the echoes of his words lingering long after his departure. The Galactic Council had sought to measure humanity and, in doing so, had been forced to reconsider the depths of its own assumptions.